Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're tackling a difficult but incredibly important topic. It's a story of how a nation turned on itself, of how neighbors became murderers, and how the world, for the most part, stood by and watched. This is the story of the 1994 Rwandan genocide, a period of 100 days that left an indelible scar on human history. To truly understand what happened, we need to go back in time, long before 1994. For centuries, Rwanda was home to several groups, but two became prominent: the Hutu and the Tutsi. For most of their history, these weren't rigid ethnic identities as we might think of them today. They were more like social or economic classes. A Hutu who acquired wealth and cattle could, over time, be considered a Tutsi, and vice versa. They shared the same language, the same culture, and the same land. Everything changed with the arrival of European colonizers. First Germany, and then, after World War I, Belgium. The Belgians brought with them their own ideas about race and ethnicity. They saw the Tutsi, who were generally taller and had features they considered more European, as a superior group. They favored them, placing them in positions of power within the colonial administration and giving them better access to education and jobs. To formalize this division, in 1933, the Belgians introduced a system of ethnic identity cards. Every Rwandan was now officially labeled as Hutu Tutsi, or Twa. This simple piece of paper cemented a division that had previously been fluid. It turned a social hierarchy into a rigid, inescapable ethnic one. The Hutu majority, who made up about 85% of the population, grew to resent the Tutsi minority, who they now saw as privileged collaborators with the colonial rulers. This resentment simmered for decades. When Rwanda moved towards independence in the late 1950s, the political tide began to turn. The Belgians, seeing the winds of change, switched their support to the Hutu majority. Hutu politicians began to rise, promoting an ideology of Hutu power. This ideology portrayed the Tutsi not as fellow Rwandans, but as foreign invaders who'd oppressed the Hutu for centuries. The first major wave of violence, often called the Rwandan Revolution, erupted in 1959. Hutu extremists began targeting and killing Tutsis, forcing tens of thousands to flee to neighboring countries like Uganda, Burundi, and Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. By the time Rwanda gained full independence in 1962, a Hutu-dominated government was firmly in power. For the next 30 years, life for Tutsis inside Rwanda was difficult. They faced discrimination, persecution, and periodic massacres. The Tutsi refugees in neighboring countries formed a rebel group called the Rwandan Patriotic Front, or RPF. Their goal was to overthrow the Hutu government and secure a safe return for all Tutsi refugees. In October 1990, the RPF invaded northern Rwanda, starting the Rwandan Civil War. The war further polarized the country. The Hutu government, led by President Juvenal Habyarimana, used the RPF invasion as proof that all Tutsis were a threat. State-sponsored media began a relentless campaign of hate. Propaganda radio stations, like the infamous RTLM, broadcast messages day and night, dehumanizing Tutsis, calling them cockroaches and snakes that needed to be exterminated. They compiled lists of Tutsis and moderate Hutus, who were seen as traitors. The stage was being set for something truly horrific. International pressure led to peace talks, and in August 1993, the Arusha Accords were signed. This was a power-sharing agreement between Habyarimana's government and the RPF. A UN peacekeeping force was sent to Rwanda to oversee the agreement. It seemed like there was a glimmer of hope, but for the Hutu extremists, this peace deal was a betrayal. They had been secretly training and arming militias, known as the Interamo, preparing not for peace, but for war. The final trigger came on the evening of April 6, 1994. The plane carrying President Habyarimana and the President of Burundi was shot down as it prepared to land in Kigali, the capital. To this day, it's not definitively known who was responsible, but Hutu extremists immediately seized the opportunity. They blamed the RPF and, by extension, all Tutsis. Within hours, the plan was put into motion. Roadblocks manned by the army and the Interahamwe militia, sprang up across Kigali. Lists of political opponents, moderatos tous, and prominent Tutsis were used to carry out targeted assassinations. The Prime Minister, Agathwiling-Imana, a moderate hutu, was one of the first to be killed, along with the 10 Belgian UN peacekeepers who were guarding her. This was the start of the genocide. The killing was systematic and horrifically efficient. The signal to begin was broadcast over the radio. Cut the tall trees. It was a call to arms for ordinary Hutu citizens to kill their Tutsi neighbors. The weapons of this genocide were not primarily guns, but everyday tools, machetes, clubs, and spears. Churches and schools, places that should have been sanctuaries, became slaughterhouses. Thousands of Tutsis flocked to them, believing they would be safe. Instead, Hutu militias, sometimes led by priests or mayors, surrounded the buildings and massacred everyone inside. People were hunted down in their homes, in the swamps, and the hills. The identity cards that the Belgians had introduced decades earlier now became death sentences. At roadblocks, militias would check IDs, and anyone labeled Tutsi was killed on the spot. What is so chilling is how widespread the participation was. It wasn't just the military or militias. It was ordinary people. Your neighbor, your colleague, even your doctor or teacher could become a killer overnight, driven by years of hate propaganda, fear, and social pressure. There were brave Hutus who risked their lives to hide and save their Tutsi friends and neighbors, but they were a minority, and many paid for their courage with their own lives. And where was the international community? The UN peacekeeping force, led by Canadian General Romeo Dallaire, was on the ground. Dallaire repeatedly warned his superiors at the UN headquarters in New York about the escalating violence and the planned extermination. He pleaded for more troops and a stronger mandate to intervene, to confiscate weapons, and protect civilians. His pleas were ignored. Instead of reinforcing the mission, the UN Security Council, after the murder of the 10 Belgian peacekeepers, voted to withdraw most of its troops, leaving only a skeleton crew of a few hundred soldiers. They were ordered not to intervene, to act only in self-defense. They became helpless witnesses to a genocide they were powerless to stop. Major world powers, including the United States, were hesitant to get involved, even refusing to use the word genocide, because doing so would have legally obligated them to act under international law. While the world looked away, the killing continued. The RPF, which had been based in the north, launched a major offensive to stop the genocide and topple the government. They fought their way across the country, battling the genocidal regime's forces. Finally, in mid-July 1994, about 100 days after it began, the RPF captured Kigali and declared a ceasefire. The genocide was over, but the devastation was almost incomprehensible. In just 100 days, an estimated 800,000 to 1 million people were murdered. The vast majority were Tutsis, but tens of thousands of moderate Hutus were also killed. That's a rate of killing nearly 3 times faster than that of the Holocaust. The country was in ruins. Millions of Hutus, fearing reprisal from the advancing RPF, fled to neighboring countries, creating a massive refugee crisis. In the aftermath, Rwanda faced the monumental task of seeking justice and reconciliation. The UN established the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda to prosecute the architects of the genocide. By Rwanda, a unique system of community courts, known as Gakaka courts, was revived to deal with the overwhelming number of perpetrators. It was a process of truth-telling, confession, and community-based justice, aiming not just for punishment, but for a path toward living together again. Today, Rwanda has made remarkable progress. It's often hailed as an African success story for its economic development, stability, and cleanliness. But the trauma of 1994 is never far from the surface. The government, led by the RPF's Paul Kagame, has promoted a single Rwandan identity, banning any mention of Hutu or Tutsi. Yet, the deep wounds of the genocide and the challenge of true, lasting reconciliation remain. The Rwandan genocide serves as a terrifying reminder of the dangers of ethnic hatred, the power of propaganda, and the catastrophic failure of the international community to act. The phrase, "never again," declared after the Holocaust, rang hollow in 1994, It forces us to ask ourselves what we have learned and whether we would act differently today. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this dark chapter of our recent history. It's not easy to hear, but it's essential that we remember the victims and learn the lessons from what happened in Rwanda. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more deep dives into historical events. See you next time.